Thanks everyone for being here. This is quite exciting. I never thought I'd work in developer productivity or developer tools. I was just assigned the task of setting up CI/CD for a project, and I was told to use Windows Scheduler and write a bat file. And I was like, hell no, I'm not going to do that. And that's how I learned anything about developer productivity. What's your story, Michael?
Yeah, hi everyone, good morning. Hopefully we'll bring people back from coffee in a second. I'm Michael Bachman, I'm a VP GM at Google. I work in Google Cloud. I've been at Google for 21 and a half years. This is AI, right? I don't look that old. I've been in cloud for a year, but we're not going to talk about my new role, but you have to promise to have me back at some point to do that.
To talk about cloud?
To talk about cloud.
I thought we agreed we were not going to talk.
Yeah, we shouldn't do that. But I've spent basically about 20 years setting up developer productivity and infrastructure at Google. My origin story in it too is graduated college. Didn't expect to fall into it. I think prior to Google, I worked at a small investment company called Silicon Valley Bank. You might have heard of it. I joined Google and I worked on our billing and payment system. This is circa 2003. And my starter project was month close reporting pipelines. So imagine sort of being a fresh new grad. You meet with finance and they say, we need to take all this data from MySQL DB. You need to write a bunch of Java software to take this and export it into our month close reporting that we're going to take to the street. And I say, that sounds scary. And if something goes wrong with that, bad things happen. This is before CI/CD, right? Where you had your desktop on the side that ran your tests. And sort of out of self-preservation, I said I actually need to probably start figuring out who touches my code, how to test it, how to manage it. And the rest is sort of history. And then I spent 20 years building it out at scale at Google.
Was it a 386, a 486? What kind of what was that under your desk?
Oh, I mean, that was when sort of the Intel processors were, it was an x86 machine, but this was when, the Intel processors were the cool things to have, and they were incrementally, but it was some Dell.
I remember I had like 5 monitors on my desk monitoring all the pipelines and all the work, from the smallest old monitor to the very large one on the right. I could drag windows across this thing. This was cool.
So now at Google, you could think of we have millions of binaries. The majority of those go out to production multiple times a week in a fully automated CI/CD setup. A lot of that was homegrown and built. And now we've had a wrangle with how does Gen AI influence that entire workflow, which of course we'll go into it.
Yeah, but before we do that, let's fast forward to Google. When you explain developer productivity at Google, how do you pitch it to anyone, a new hire or anyone in this audience? Like, what's your elevator pitch for developer productivity at Google?
Yeah, no one joins either Google or any of your companies to sit there and watch builds complete or flake out. No one says, you know what I want to do? I want to sit there and I want to, run my compilation. I want to wait for a while. I want to see tests flake. I want to figure out how to set up a system under test. I want to deal with, large-scale testing and figure out. No one says, they want to come and innovate. They want to come and solve problems of the world. And so our job is to actually make that easy. And so everything that you need to do to be able to get a change into production so it's well-tested and thought out, we need to make simple, so you can go and change the world.
Do you think about this as simplicity as developer experience, or does it matter at all? What does developer experience look like that's not staring at pipelines, run builds?
If my bosses came to me and said, I need you to make Google more productive tomorrow, the answer would be, okay, we could just stop writing tests, instant productivity. There we go, right? There's trade-offs to this. So you need to think about the speed and the velocity of getting things done. And that goes into sort of determinism, right? Can I get it? It's easy to wait 2.5 hours to get a deterministic signal back because you can go and multitask versus just speed of let's get you something back in 15 minutes and it's not repeatable. And so we have to think about velocity. We have to think about determinism. But we also have to think about the joy of the developer workflow at Google, right? How many of you love your CI/CD developer infrastructure pipelines, and you're like, I can't wait to just go through that tomorrow?
I feel seen.
Boy, we got one, right? And so It's the challenging part about this discipline is your customers are right next to you. You get to see them when you walk through the hall. And so there's a high bar of like making that enjoyable and making it fast. And then you'll also hear if it doesn't work.
So I think we established you don't like your CI/CD or you don't love it.
I love making it easy.
Okay, so how do you make something easy at the scale of Google? Like I imagine you have some very large number of developers, a huge amount of these pipelines. Like how does this work at a scale that's some of the biggest, if not the biggest scale in the entire world?
Sure. So Google, we probably have order of magnitude 80,000 engineers. We probably have order of magnitude 2,000 people focused on this discipline at Google that are writing developer productivity infrastructure, CI/CD systems, maintaining all of that so the rest of the 80,000 can be productive. So there's a large amount of people and there's a large amount of machines behind that. But I think we're constantly looking to see how we can innovate and make it more simple because the dynamic out there is constantly changing too. And I mean, you know, in the case of about a year and a half ago, everyone started thinking about how can, you know, LLMs change not just line completion, but a lot of this, and we're trying to rethink through that too.
So I appreciate this idea of simplicity as good developer experience. I think that's very valuable. Talk to me about, before we talk about AI and the experience and how that changed things, I do want to know more about the resiliency and the repeatability of these systems at the scale. Like, what are the principles that guide creating something that is massively useful, indispensable, and critical path for developers for 80,000 engineers?
Yeah.
How do you approach this?
Yeah, I think you have to spend time and invest in your development and release and production principles. You have to as a company. What are non-negotiables that are going to set the culture and the framework of what's the expectation of an engineer? What's the expectation of how do you test? What's the expectation of your monitoring? What's your expectation of how you push into production? If you don't have these principles, then it's going to be the Wild West, right? And so we have a set of development and release and production principles we sort of abide by, right? This means that you need to have propagated binary releases. It's not like let's push it out and see what happens. You need to be able to get, you know, changes code reviewed. You need to be able to make sure that they run through all the tests that you have. You need to, if you're going to bypass tests, you need approval. So think about it, your company, whether it's Shopify or whether it's anyone else that's watching or attending this, what are your development and production principles? Are they documented? Are they known? And then that can help sort of shape the CI/CD systems that you build around that to help enforce and make that easy. So developers, it's not easy to do the wrong thing. It's very hard to do the wrong thing, and it's easy to do the right thing.
So do you have an example of how mechanization of these principles looks like at Google?
Yeah, I mean, we could say, let's talk about pre-submission and post-submission. So as a developer, everything that I author has to get code reviewed by someone else, period. And that code reviewer has to be on the team that owns the binary. It's not just my friend to say, hey, I want to make a change to the system. Can you code review? So that's one principal part of it. That change has to go through our tests. We have a set of pre-submit tests that you can't bypass. Yes, you could say, I'm going to bypass it because there's an emergency emergency in production. I can't wait. I got to go. You need another approval for that because we have to be very, very careful with roles and responsibilities there. We have post-submission asynchronous tests that run. These are the large-scale ones that you're not going to block a developer on. All of those need to be green before we cut a release and to be able to make that a release candidate, for example. Then you go through your entire release phase in terms of running canary analysis, starting small, propagating larger, and that's over the course of some businesses 5 days, because we want to be very, very careful. Some of them 10, because of if they're a core critical binary, let's say in our networking stack, that could blow up a lot of things. We have to be very thoughtful and careful of that. And so these are principles that we take and we bake into our systems by default to make sure we do the right thing.
So would you say in a code review, is the review bar really high, or is the review bar really low? Not in the sense of quality, but in the sense of like, how many people do I need to convince that this code change can go in?
So that's actually up to the team. So teams will set up a ownership model where they could say, look, this set of core group have to approve every single CL because of one reason or another. CL is our change list or our change. Or some of them say if anyone on this mailing list or anyone in this team hierarchy. So we give that to the team to be able to set up to allow them to scale. Because if everything funnels through Daniel, you might be the most productive person in the world.
The least productive.
But then things fall over. And so we try to enable teams to be able to do that based upon how they could scale and time zones.
And so that's a lot of developer autonomy to some extent, but also doesn't it create an environment where it's free for all? Like one team does one thing, another team does another thing. How do you ensure that this actually creates Google as opposed to a bunch of Googles?
I mean, I think that's any large company's challenge, right? Is you want to empower everyone to be able to operate fairly independently, bring up ideas, innovate, but sort of try to change manage that chaos. And that's where sort of, VPs like me sort of get paid to help do that, I guess. But so what you don't want to do is you don't want to stifle all of that. And so sometimes you'll get 1,000 flowers that are blooming, and then you need to go make decisions on which flowers you keep, which ones you don't, and how to merge things and make it, a standard. But what you don't want to do is have this long drawn-out process where we have to go through these change control boards to be able to get to that first before we innovate, because then the pace that everything's moving, we blink and we're gone. And we need to be able to continue to move very, very fast.
So is it different depending on what it is that I'm building? Like if I'm vibe coding a prototype, I imagine that the bar should be pretty low, but if I am putting a change in search, the bar is very high.
Correct. We have an entire experimental directory in our source control system that if you want to go and innovate there, innovate.
And it's a monorepo, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then if you want to move it into sort of the mainline monorepo, then you have to go through some production principles, because if you're going to go release that into a binary, there are things that we have to do.
That's very interesting to me. We are learning how to do a monorepo at Shopify as we are. It's one of the biggest initiatives here is moving to a monorepo to enable such wonderful things as changing code in variety of parts of Shopify and then being able to deliver features together and in a reliable way. What's your advice for us for the processes around monorepo specifically and moving tens of thousands, well, for us, thousands of engineers together?
I mean, I think the benefit of a monorepo is everything is there and anyone can actually go and depend on another binary or system within that repo. And there's visibility and there's high visibility of that. That's a positive. The negative of that is controlling those dependencies, right? And I remember one of the first things, I was working on our ad systems a long time ago. And, I go through my normal CI/CD process, check in my change, watch the build, watch it out, go out, and I go home. And then this is, I think it was Playbooks at the time. They said, Michael, what were you doing? You completely hosed our build. And I was like, I work on, I can't conceptually understand how my change impacted your build. It doesn't make any sense. And they're like, oh, we actually depend on one of your low-level libraries that, we didn't have backward compatibility of this. And I was like, but you shouldn't. That's not what this is for. But that's sort of the drawback of a monorepo. And so you have to continue to really be careful about the change management around the dependencies of it, so you don't get into some of these unknowns, because it's very, very hard at runtime to understand those unknowns.
Do you run analysis on these dependencies? Do you draw graphs, trees, and look at them in depth? How does that work? This is definitely a problem. I mean, I love Ruby for taking dependency on a random library, and then it drags in any XML bib, and then that's it. So nothing works.
You have change management, similar as you're checking in a change in a production. If you're adding to your build dependencies, there's change management around that as well, right? And so you have to get those approved. So hopefully a tech leader, that same ownership group, says, yes, let's go and depend on Michael's mediocrely written ads library. But it's constant pruning, right? And you just have to be very, very mindful of that.
And is dependency taking encouraged or discouraged? Like my AWS experience is very much discouraged, right? Copy code if you must.
Reuse is encouraged.
Reuse is encouraged.
Yeah.
Ve- Very interesting. Let's switch topics. We promised to talk about AI, and I imagine that in everything we talked about, AI changed everything. Maybe tell me the few things that AI changed immediately, and then we'll talk about the long-term ramifications of that.
Well, I mean, I will admit a year and a half ago when, these token predictors, I'll say, came out, I'll be like, it's just a token predictor. It can't figure all this out. Look at the context window. It's too smart, or it's too short. I can't actually fit anything in this. The tokens are going to run out in terms of its prediction value at some point. So cool, this will be a fad. I was on that point about a year and a half ago. And I'll tell you a quick story of what changed. So this was probably about a year ago. My son, I have two boys, 12-year-old and 14-year-old. My 14-year-old was in middle school and he had a CS class. And he's like, Dad, you know what I'm going to do for my project? I'm going to write a blackjack game. And I was like, oh, that sounds like a good starter project for you. And I was taking, you know what I was like? He's like, I'm still a coder at heart, even though I'm like a manager these days. I'm going to take a morning off and I'm going to write the best Python-based blackjack game like known to man, CLI-based because I'm a backend engineer. So I spent 6 hours writing a old school TensorFlow machine learning backed blackjack game that I simulated a million times. I gave you a prediction in terms of if you should stay or hit. It was beautiful CLI based or whatnot, and I couldn't wait for him to get home from school, right? And so sitting there, I'm like giddy. He gets home and I'm like, hey, Vince, come over here. Like, I want to show you my blackjack game that I spent like half a day doing. And he's like, oh, cool, Dad. Yeah, I finished mine in about 40 minutes in class. And I was just like, I don't understand what you're talking about. And he's like, yeah, we use Replit. I just pressed tab the entire time and I turned it in. So similar from a developer productivity background, I was like, well, how did you handle the ace? He's like, what are you talking about? I said, well, the ace could be 1 or 11 depending upon the hand. And he was like, I don't know. And I was like, well, let's look at your code. And I opened it up and I was like, oh gosh, like I can't even read this thing. I was like, where do you make a decision of where to hit or not? He's like, I don't know. He's like, but we could ask it to change that. And I was like, okay, all right. That's when I started sort of realizing the potential of this, but also the fear of, we have to the earlier talk, we still have to learn how to code because we have to be able to debug and architect these things too.
I have so many questions. The first one is
parenting is probably at core.
I have a 16 and a 14-year-old too. Like, why didn't you tell him you're just a 14-year-old kid? You don't know what you're doing. Did you think about doing that?
Because I want him to be a future engineer. Well, I guess maybe that's what that can also help him for that.
We should talk about that too.
Yeah.
But why did you choose Python for your project?
Oh, okay. Is there a better alternative? Oh, okay, I was going to say, is there a better alternative? I don't
Yes,
so.
It's Ruby.
Okay, and you're a VI guy too, right?
No.
Okay, all right.
But I know how to quit VI.
Okay, I don't. Yeah, once I just basically end the task because once I get into that, I don't know how to get out.
Okay. These are very powerful tools. But so, what your conclusion from this experience was
that it's coming. That if my 14-year-old that basically was doing, I think it was Scratch, where it was sort of like a what you see, what you get editor for children. He was doing that, and then he goes into a CS class and he uses Replit to be able to build a blackjack game in Python in 40 minutes. If he could, with very minimal CS knowledge, if he could do that, and this was a year ago, everything's going to change. And so that was the moment I was like, okay, this is going to change how we work. And I'm a believer now.
And so the developer, I imagine you applied that to developer productivity at Google. Like everything will change. And what was did you go back to the office and gathered everyone? Were like, the guys, like everything is going to change.
My team has heard this story to frame it, but I think it started having us look at everything. How do you actually think about whether that dependency should be included or not? Is there a better dependency for the scope of the problem? That's one thing that you could actually bring in context and get a recommendation from. Obviously, line completion is, IDEs have been solving that for a long time, so it's not about line completion. But as the context windows increase and you could put more into it, then the prompts that you could craft and the questions you could answer are actually pretty tractable. And before, if we said, okay, let's look across this giant monorepo that 80,000 people are building in and give you a particular dependency for what you're trying to solve for that is least scoped to that, would be a monumental, difficult, old school problem to solve. Think about sort of how to keep that up to date. Now you could just sort of ask, Gemini 2.5 Pro, no, something like that.
You do develop some of the best models out there, so they're very impressive, and
Thank you.
I'm sure you get access to them, before us, before everybody else does. But things are moving fast. But help me understand this path from this oh shit moment and the where we are now. Like, what did you do first in developer productivity specific?
I mean, I think the first part is to look at that moment, what are LLMs good for? And what could they do based upon the context, as well as the cost and the machines and the need of tuning it. And obviously, code completion that's going to be table stakes anywhere, right? So, okay, we know that's going to be table stakes across any model. So let's go over code completion. And then you broaden context, and that's taken package, file, other context into it to be able to help developer in a broader space. Like Cursor's done very, very well with that, for example. Then start looking at everything outside of that developer workflow. What about design? What about documentation? What about testing? What about debugging? What about optimization? And as the context window has gotten larger, it's been able to allow us to spread and look at across that entire spectrum. And so let's say if you want to think about machine utilization, and you could actually take production logs. You could take the design of the system, and you could say, where am I sort of slowing down in terms of my utilization based on this type of traffic? Those are problems that you would have to hire 10 data scientists to try to figure out 2 years ago.
So did you go team by team and told them your 10 data scientists need to retool and
no,
thanks for being here?
And I actually want to ask and see how Shopify has done this too. We encouraged everyone to look at it. It wasn't a mandate. It wasn't that thou shall use AI every morning and go and figure it out. It was here's a tool that's getting better every single month. Go and see how it can solve problems for you. And then share that back to the broader community so we could learn in the broader engineering productivity or engineering community.
So it remained optional, but at the same time, you realized that the future is changing. So how do you balance this optional, nice to have to, you kind of have to get on this?
It became optional for teams, out that are building products. For the developer, infrastructure org, it wasn't optional anymore. That was sort of the future. We need to figure out how to actually bake this into our developer infrastructure and workflows.
So have you? Did you bake it
yes.
in places? Do you want to talk about some specific examples of how you baked AI into?
I mean, similar to what so the first one was, we had an internal chatbot that has all the context of our internal documentation and monorepo and everything built on Gemini that you could ask it, any question you want in terms of what is this piece of infrastructure, to which team owns this, to where is the documentation of this, or I have this error, help me figure it, help me debug this. So you have an internal chatbot. You have this baked into our VS Code based IDEs inside Google, similar as everyone else is doing that. And then we also are expanding in terms of everything downstream too, in terms of, let's say, Canary analysis. Canary is sort of our release process. You release it into one sort of small data center or region or zone, and you do sort of log comparisons or traffic comparisons, run that through for anomaly detection. There's a lot that we're doing on both ends of it.
First, I'm surprised you're not using Vim, but it's mostly VS Code. Is how developers use it. Yeah. Great. And do you give access to all these models and to everyone, and
yes.
you just go at it?
Yes.
Cool. What do you think the outcomes of this? What were the outcomes of this approach? Like, where did this pay in terms of developer productivity? And I guess we haven't talked about how to even measure that.
Yeah, and we should get into that. So I think the outcome is just us being intentional with, if 80,000 people are running through your infrastructure, you don't want to put something in there that is not deterministic, flaky, and blocks them. So we have a high bar to make sure if we introduce this to an 80,000 developer community, it actually has to be useful. Otherwise, it's an experiment that they could toggle on and off. So we have to have a high bar in terms of the intentionality of what we're trying to release.
And do you work backwards from the outcomes, or do you let people experiment and see what works? Both?
Both. I mean, you want the experimentation, but you also want intentionality in terms of what are you trying to accomplish here. So, right, versus just applying technology to apply technology.
For the technology's sake, right?
For technology's sake. That's when things get very, very complicated and overweight.
I always love developer tools because it's developer tools for developer tools' sake. Some of the most elegant developer tools. I really enjoy using them and develop the tools with the tools.
Some of our customers might not.
So in looking at the ways that AI is applied, I'm sure the more you look at the meta version of the company, the more people want to know how much better is it? How more productive the teams are? So how do you measure it? What are the metrics? What are the hard numbers?
Yeah, that's a great question. Raise your hand if you felt productive yesterday. Okay, I mean, if you were sitting in a talk, okay, so it's hopefully the talks went well, and I'm sure it went well. Okay, but the point is, productivity is subjective. It really is subjective, and there's a couple different dimensions to it. There's your own productivity and how you feel and your ability to get things done, but there's also an aspect of a team's productivity and the team's ability to get things done, and those are correlated but independent. And so we look at a couple different things as proxies. You could always sort of proxy in terms of how fast can a person get something done. Okay, that's a proxy of velocity. Maybe how much can they get things done? It's a proxy of throughput. We send surveys out every single quarter so people can tell us how bad their developer experience is or what we need to do. There's a sentiment part and how they feel through those journeys. That's a personal one. But then you could also zoom out and look at the team level. And you could look at the team and the team's sentiment and their ability to get things done from a team perspective, or the team's velocity in getting things done. And I think the challenge here is, how do you balance both? How do you balance individual productivity? Because some people are very, very different in terms of what makes them productive, but how do you bring that together so a team is productive? And we've all been in a situation. I remember being in a situation when Google was really rapidly growing. I was a TL, and I had a bunch of new hires around me, right? In that situation, I could say, oh my gosh, I want to go be productive, leave me alone. I'm going to go hide for weeks and you all figure it out. That's optimizing for my productivity, but it's not optimizing for the team's productivity, right? And so you have to look at both. And so if you're trying to think about productivity, you have to think about, how do we look at the individual and their experience, and how do we look at the team is it coming together the right way?
And these teams, are you expanding these teams with AI? Are there new team members that have distinct personalities and work side by side with your engineers, or this is still science fiction?
Are you talking about the new team members or little MCP agents running around?
Yeah, and that are coded. You are an expert in search. You are an expert in the programming language. And
we have MCP agents running around. We haven't given them a badge yet, and we haven't figured out how to measure their own productivity. But it's still, those are tools as a proxy of, are they helping a person or are they helping a team?
So you don't see AI having a personality, it's just tools?
We're not there yet. I'm not there yet. Others might be. I want it to be able to make the person there more productive and innovative, and do the things that they don't want to do, to allow them to do the things that they do want to do. I don't think we're as far as saying, okay, here's a bunch of agents. We're going to have to get there very quickly in terms of, here's agents, here's their identity, here's their scope, here's their authorization, here's what they could do, and here's how we can measure the success of that. We need to get there very quickly, though.
And so I am a firm believer that in the future we will have very autonomous agents writing code together with our engineers, which will bring the human factor, Absolutely. Which you are saying is very important. I think we agree Absolutely. On that, right?
Absolutely.
So how does that change team composition moving forward? And do we need junior engineers in the team? Do we need to train people anymore in coding? Like this changes everything.
We need junior engineers and we need to train people. I think Yes.
Is it just? Are you saying that because you have a child that needs a future?
I mean, if I'm investing this much in his education, he needs to have employment at some point. But no, I strongly believe still that there is. I mean, the last talk touched on this. Let me say an analogy, right? How many of you like to cook? I don't like to cook, so please, like, how many of you like to cook? Okay. How many of you like to garden and cook? Okay, smaller subset, right? So there's a subset that want to go and figure out how to grow their own ingredients and to make a meal later. That's great. There's a larger subset that says, I'm going to go to the store and buy my ingredients to be able to put this together. Not everyone needs to be in the gardening business to be able to grow their ingredients anymore. Some people are going to be able to craft recipes and bring things together. But you're not going to, right now, we don't have robots in the kitchen where you have a button and say, make my gourmet meal tonight. There has to still be an art to this. And so for the history of almost humanity, we have abstracted problems. Okay, this thing we could solve now through automation, tooling, or whatever it is. You put an abstraction on that, and that has unlocked us to be able to tackle something else. This is going to be doing something very, very similar. So maybe, at some point, someone's not writing assembly code anymore, and you're saying, look, let's just have the agent do that. But then the developer is operating at a different level to be able to craft things. And so I think you're still going to see that ladder up, where just because we have sort of industrialized food industries doesn't mean that the chefs are gone.
So I started with x86 assembly. My first application that was ever used by another person was I TASM'd it on my DOS 5.2 machine. So I feel very personal about my x86 assembly. And I feel like we should be teaching kids to code there, because this is the only chance to understand how machines work.
You're going to have to let me know how that goes.
I tried with mine. It didn't work at all. I think they want to be artists.
Yeah. I think one of the lower language, I was working in Lisp in college, and
Scheme.
I'll never go back.
I love it. So, but are we saying that as abstraction layers increment, some things will be forgotten, and that we don't need to teach people basic electronics or basic assembly? This is controversial already today, right?
Yeah, I mean, how many of you have saw a build failure and said, I'm going to go deep on this one, right? I don't trust that compiler. Let's go levels deeper. I mean, there's going to be a sliver of maybe there's critical roles that require that. I mean, and there's going to be critical roles. I mean, if you're building probably a space rocket or a space shuttle or something like that, you're going to go deep into that, and I want them to. I don't want to say, oh yeah, no, maybe the compiler's wrong. But I think. So the bottom line is, this isn't going to remove our need of developers or engineers. We're just going to operate in a different way, similar as how all of humanity has continued to do that over time.
Just raising the abstraction layers higher and higher and higher and higher at the size of a spaceship, and no longer
or allows. How many of you? I mean, at least when I was developing, I spent more time on build and tests and documentation and failures than I did in probably design. I would love to. I think all of us would love to spend more time in design and architecture and what we're trying to build than the things that AI can actually probably help us solve these days.
Well, I like that, and you've said earlier that we spend a lot of time writing documentation so that the AI agents can consume it and understand how things actually work. And so that's more interesting work to write about things probably than to write low-level x86 assembly and seeing the AI assemble those things. But do you think that this shift seems like a logical shift forward, incremental, and yet we say this is like the internet, everything will change? How do you reconcile this idea that it's just another layer as opposed to it will change everything?
It's not another layer, and the speed of its I guess not innovation, but its advancements is unlike anything we've seen before, and that's going to push it, right? So think about where the models were 3 months ago, where they 6 months ago, a year ago, and think about where they're going to be 2 years from now. We haven't seen something innovate at that speed before.
So is there a new law, a new Moore's law necessary for AI? Is this different?
I think that there's a capability scale, and there's going to also be sort of a optimization, and we're already sort of seeing the cost also coming down too. But yeah, I'm not going to get into new Moore's laws. I think that we have not seen something like this before. It's going to change how we work. It's not going to. If you say it's going to be incremental, it's going to be incremental in the order of months, not years.
And what do you think? What does Google look like in terms of size, shape in 5 years with this type of acceleration?
You'll have to ask my boss on that one.
What does developer productivity at Google look like in the next few years?
I think we power developers to do what they want and love every day, and we make what they don't like and what's possible easy. I think it's that same mission, and with just advancements that are moving very, very quick, that allows us to do so.
Do you have any predictions on what are the things that are going to disappear? Like we have CI systems, we have develop editors, we have reliability systems. What of those things that are well understood in developer productivity workflows, which ones will disappear?
I don't think they're going to disappear. I think you're going to develop and make them easier. I don't think you're going to say, I'm never going to have to worry about a code review ever again. Code reviews are going to be there. Maybe you're going to have an assistant help you. Or maybe you're going to have an agent go through it first and then a human approve it. But I don't think we're going to completely abstract and remove it.
So you don't think that AI will write code, another AI reviews the code, and they collaborate on an outcome that is defined by a third AI product manager that is trying to achieve goals that are maybe business goals set at a high level?
I'll say that there's a future where that's possible. And maybe when that is, you and I could go on a beach and have a drink at some point and let our agents do all the work for us.
I'm interested in whether you'd be gardening or cooking.
I will be doing neither because I am very, very poor at both. But I could barbecue if someone gives me something to barbecue.
I love a good barbecue, but I guess we are old and have been in this industry for a while. But our kids are growing up in this new world, and I'm excited about some future where they take a spaceship to Mars. This is surprisingly realistic expectation today, which 10 years ago I would laugh at myself thinking that way. But thinking about them writing code in quotes or whatever it is that they do on the spaceship as they're on their journey to another planet. Now, what are the kinds of things that are out of reach today in developer productivity? Are they going to be looking at? What will be their experience?
That's a great question. Looking at my 14-year-old's blackjack code, I hope he never writes code on a spaceship at this point in his life. I'd be very nervous about that. I think, again, if you look back 20 or 30 years and what we were developing, and I'm saying abstractions because we've abstracted the problems, or 40 or 50 years ago, thinking about 10 years ago and what we'll have abstracted and made easy to allow everyone to innovate in a different space is just sort of very exciting. I don't know what that space looks like. I think it's going to open up a lot more. If you're going to school and you're thinking about how distributed computing systems work, how models and machine learning and data science and all that work, and then you don't have to worry about the tedious things, and it frees up so much mental capacity to innovate and think about what's next. I'm excited about that, and maybe you have a bunch of agents that are flying the ship and they're sitting there and they're tuning it or whatnot. I sure hope he's not playing blackjack or trying to write games on it, but maybe they'll be vibe coding together or something like that on it.
But not a blackjack game.
Please, yeah, no.
What do you vibe code on a spaceship?
I don't know. Maybe the destination and the other beings that you're about to meet.
You believe in aliens?
I believe I believe the universe is large, and there's probably a lot of things out there that we don't know.
I think with your scientific background, that's a reasonable. That's a very reasonable answer. We don't know what's out there.
I'm still an engineer at heart.
Great. Thank you so much for talking to me here today. Really appreciate your time, and thanks everyone for coming to this.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone.